Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Tragic Mundane Tragic podcast. Um, Here in this episode, I'm going to go over the kind of basis of what that statement means. Tragic equals mundane equals tragic, because it's a simple um, cycle of logic. Because a lot of people don't recognize that when a tragedy occurs, that time has to move on. And then that becomes a mundane one. And I believe that I can show everyone here that that mundanity, that the tragedy enveloped into it, is a tragedy within itself. And with that, this episode, I'm going to be talking about my own life, and I hope that my guests, Goji and Grimsby, will be able to have some insight on that with trials and tribulations of their own. So, um, I just let me introduce myself. I am FakeRavens, uh, a veteran at this. Um, I have been studying philosophy and life for about 2 years now, and this is an aspect of it I've rarely heard about, and I'm joined today with Goji.
Hello, I'm Gojispit. I do a lot of things, but I've been Twitch streaming for a while now. Been starting to make YouTube videos, going to be doing tutorials on various aspects of technology. Started doing art, and do the podcast, The Devil's Advocate, where we take movies to court. And I think that's about it.
And Grimsby.
Hi, I'm Grimsby. I'm basically this guy's lackey. Um, I we've done a bunch of projects together. We did a talk show on a VR platform together called Real Talk, and we also did a podcast together called Side Talkers Podcast. If you want to check that out, I think there's still recordings online. Yep.
Right. So, like I said, today I'm here to talk about my life and really get into the meat potatoes of what I mean with anecdotal evidence. And so, let's get started. So I wanna set the scene a little bit. So before I was born, um, my father had to leave New York City with the rest of my family to come down into the lower state, that being Connecticut and Rhode Island, because of a drug deal gone bad and a supposed stabbing. So he had to leave, and there he met my mother, who was a up and coming RNA, who was, as I've been told, a hard worker in her field and very skilled at it. And they kind of mixed, as I've been told, like oil and fire. Not a fun experience. And what ended up happening is I was born, and my father was in and out of jail, some cause of my mother, some cause of himself. Um, and when I was around 4 years old, 2007, my mom died. She had overdosed. Uh, well, I would say overdose, but it was a mixture of alcohol and painkillers that gave her toxic blood poisoning, and she died when I was 4. And I had the great pleasure of finding her because we lived on the basement of my grandmother's house, and I had to go wake her up in the morning, um, which is it's an experience for a 4 year old. I'll tell you that.
Hmm.
And I don't have much I can say I remember about that time because I was 4 years old. I would say that is the very start of what would become a large span of dissociative episodes because, um, like any 4 year old, I had a very vivid imagination. And I remember, and I still remember this to my heart of my mother lying there dead, and then I came up with this entire fantasy of her being hauled off into a UFO and with Canadian Mounties on scene, and I was in the middle of Connecticut or Rhode Island, and that didn't happen, obviously. Um, and so that is what kicked off my life, and it's that is what I'll be using as my first example of tragedy. My mother said, and I'm not gonna say I know her, or I'm not gonna say that I can relate to what she was going through or whatever, or even say I know what her voice like, because I don't. And that's a huge part of my life. The absence of what she was and who she is what makes me the person today. That was my mundanity, not growing up with a mom, not growing up with a paternal figure, and having that happen. Yet the tragedy within that is not contained within me not having a mom. It's contained in how I took it. So I know that was a bomb um, to go into at the beginning. But it's what this is based on. It's a tragedy that you have to live with. It's grief that you have to overcome. It's adversity that has to move on. And I know often enough it's hard to speak on this, but um, there is a lot to speak on, and we'll be getting into that later in this episode. But I'd just like to ask Doji a question. Starting off, for this little experiment into idea I have, Doji, do you remember what it was like to be angry at your mother?
No, yeah, there was a few times. Um, it was basically, I got myself in trouble. She had to be the one to punish me, so all of a sudden I'm all angry at my mom and everything because of it. Another time was just, uh, sounds like a kid just fell outside. Um,
Relevant, relevant.
well, all of a sudden I heard a thump and then, and it's like, oh, yes. Anyway,
Forsake me not, mother.
uh, so it was a hard time. We had received some money through a situation with my father, who had passed away, and it was kind of causing a rift in the family because the money was being used quickly to repair the house and so forth and so on. But it was kind of a almost it felt like somebody was trying to power play. The provider of the house, my stepfather, felt like the money was just being used to make the my mom's life better, but it was our money, and it kind of caused a rift between them and us, and there was a lot of arguments and stuff back and forth because of it. And in the process, my mom would harp about how she's angry about something, and I finally got to the point where it's like, I don't really care anymore. I really don't. It's like it's just too much. It's been happening for too long. And that time I felt really upset about the situation. I thought it could be handled better on all sides. And yet each side was so dug in. And I think that's about the only time I was really like angry at somebody in my family. Where I felt like, how do you fix this? How do you make this better when you can't see the end of it? I think that's about it. That's the only time I've been really angry with my mom, and it really wasn't just her; it was the entire situation. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I asked because I feel like there's a huge disconnect of what we mean to a person and what we know of a person and how we feel about a person. So, like people believe in the innate sense of, the maternal figure, right? You respect your mother because your mother, birthed you into the world and you are her creation and she is your creator. Therefore, it's that, power struggle. And I feel like a lot of times there is this issue between, the mother child power structure, which is in that, it's not, you're not able to, properly um, allow yourself to process emotions through, descent. Say, your paternal or maternal figure, acts in a, you know, uh, malevolent or ignorant way, and you are not allowed to mentally dissent against them through that power structure, and it leads you to uh, not not be able to process your own emotions properly because you're worried about how you think about them without even saying.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I've seen that situation before because my ex-wife and her mom kind of have that relationship where the mother demands and the daughter would have to acquiesce because that's just the way the power structure works. Until finally her current husband shows up and goes, "Nah, we're not doing that anymore. He's an awesome guy." Helped her out a lot. So I've seen that. I've actually seen that. I've seen that in most of their family actually runs like that, where it's a lot of uh, how would you say it? Uh, uh, Manipulation, emotional manipulation. That's what it is, and trying to keep that power struggle. Keep the control of the end of the power struggle by using emotion to manipulate it into their favor, and that happened a lot. So I'm glad she got out of that. Definitely. I might joke about my ex-wife, but we're actually really good friends. So it's like I don't oh I don't uh, have any ill will towards her, and if I say anything bad about her, she's said something bad about me. We kind of keep it even, and we usually
Don't be a
never make.
stereotype.
Oh, we used to get in arguments in front of the friends. We'd pick at each other and just watch the friends get really nervous and start backing away, and we're just sitting there smiling, enjoying the moment. But anyway, off to subject. Sorry.
right. So, um, Grimsby. Second question that leads. Um, what do you believe is the binding authority between a parent and a child? Do you think it's blood? Do you think it's relationship? Do you think it's even law?
No, was that for me?
Uh,
Or
the
no, that's Grimsby. Yeah. Oh,
no,
sorry.
sorry. um, the most binding part of a hmm, child to parent relate. Yeah, I, yeah, if in a successful relationship with your parents or with your children, I think the most important thing is a level of respect. And I don't mean you must respect your elders. I mean a respect that goes both ways. That you have to respect that yes, they are your parents or yes, they are your child, but they're also with their own thoughts and feelings and beliefs and opinions, and they may not always line up with yours. And learning to understand that and even get over that at times, in both going both ways, is fundamental to having a good relationship with your children or with your parents. Uh, some people believe that your children have to respect you and that they have to hang on your every word. I've seen children who are just absolutely nightmares to their parents, and parents who just have absolutely no care in the world what their children want to do with their lives. But I think that often leads to like a disconnect with where some people just don't feel like their parents are really on their side anymore, or whether or believe that their children are really their children. If you understand what I mean. I know that's kind of not the best answer, but
Great. So,
we didn't prepare this
um,
beforehand.
so like I said, I don't even remember what my mother's voice sounded. I don't have a clue what her personality was. All I have is these stories. And when I was, uh, must have been, I was still 4. It's just 2007, and I had gotten an argument with the woman my father had gotten with when right before my mother and father broke up about a couple months before his death. Which I mean led to my brother being born on my mother's funeral. Um, Stepford. And so it was must have been on a Sunday or Saturday night. For whatever reason, my stepmother a stepmother at the time had gotten up and said she was um, using heroin at the time for some, and for whatever reason she woke up and took whatever anger she had out on me, and um, I like she came into my room and she said, "Clean up this fucking mess, this and that." And my room was fine. There was nothing to clean up, and so I panicked. I first of all I didn't understand our relationship yet because you know I had just come into this sense of self awareness, and I didn't know how to act when she was angry at me. So I panicked, and I remember I hid in my closet or a closet at the time of whatever. And I remember repeating to myself, I wish that my mom was here. I wish that my mom was here. And I have at that point I still didn't remember my mom. I didn't remember her voice. I didn't know who that was. And I remember not knowing, and I remember going, okay, right. I didn't like who am I wishing to be here? I like as a child I even remember, thinking to myself, but is this gonna be better? If I change that, is this going to be better? Is she the bitch, that I'm making her out to be, my stepmom that is. And then my mom is the same. And then I heard all the stories um, from everyone in my family. I'm not saying everyone's a perfect being, but um, I learned how my mom died as I go to learn how her relationship with my father, her getting into domestics with him and having the police called and bringing him to jail and court, um, and him threatening to hurt her, among them. They were engaged when they broke that off for what I would say is good reason. Um, I would think that maybe those people don't really work together. Um, so in that they had this toxic relationship, and I learned of that after the fact. Now, can I get her side? No. Can I get um, everyone else's side? Not necessarily. I can't understand her the way they understood her. So I don't try to hold myself to any idea of what I have of her based on other people's stories. But there's no way I can't let them influence that because I don't know her. And yet everyone says, "Oh, but she's your mother, right? You love your mother, right? You got to deal with your mother." And I there's nothing to that. So um, from about when I was 12, I had just come out of my I would say 11th school. No, bring that back. 8th school. From bouncing around with my stepmom and my stepfather, my real father, because he would be fired from jobs for sexual harassment or some other reason. He would we wouldn't be able to make rent, or um, I even remember hearing that once there was an altercation in the area that we're in that involved my father, and so we had to leave. And when I finally got to Rotten, that's when my stepmother skipped out, and I met this kid named Byron. And I forget how old I was at the time. But Byron um, had no father, only mother, and his mother was suicidal, bipolar, and he was the only person I could say that wasn't my family that I loved as a friend. And he got me into smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, and um, among other things, he got me into a lot. And I didn't think at the time that I was doing it for any other reason besides to do it. That it was something to be able to do, and I was, but that's when it started. It was this void of life that I was experiencing. People leaving, me not really having any foundation of life to put myself on. Not having a nuclear family, a stable home, stable income. We barely could afford groceries. Um, and I couldn't rely on my father because I would come home from school and he would be high as a kite on the couch of what I know now is weed, but I just thought he always smelled that way. Um, After a day of work, no, he was getting high in his car, passing out on the couch, and I would have to sit there, sit quietly in the living room, and try to play on my little PS2 quietly until he'd wake up and take the day and rinse repeat. Um, and I didn't get out of that situation until say uh, after I said I'm trouble remembering, but CPS had taken me away, and on a base of neglect, and I went to go live with my grandparents. It was there I had starting indulging in food and increasing my eating habits, which led to an amount of issues with my health. I, at my highest, I was 350 pounds, and I'm currently down a lot. I'm at around 240, I think. It's over 100 pounds. I've lost like 2.5. But
We're weight brothers. That's about where I'm at too.
hooray! Um, at this point, I'd like to take a break and just want to talk about what you guys' thoughts are on um, a lack of control in a child's life and a overuse of control. What,
um,
what do you think is more beneficial?
I've see the thing is that I was very bad at this, so me talking about this is like, hey, uh, let me talk. Let's have somebody who's not an expert in it whatsoever talk about it.
And,
Um,
and, and you're a father, right?
yeah, I'm a father too. I have a 21, well, almost 20. Nah, she'll be 22 in October. 22-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old son. And son's in college. He's just finishing up on that. Daughter has given me two beautiful granddaughters, or granddaughter, grandson, grandchildren. There we go. Two grandchildren. In the process, I've seen the extremes of both. I've seen too little, too much, just right. Through friends and family and stuff like that. Unnamed friends had a child that was allowed to do whatever he wanted to do. And they finally, he had come up behind a kid who was drinking from the water fountain and smashed his face into the water fountain. And that's about the time they're like, okay, it ends now. And the parents took training and schooling, and they made themselves better. And he is an amazing person now. But they had to put that control on just right to guide him back onto the direction. And I think that's the thing is that raising a child is, uh, especially when you have your first child, you don't know what the hell you're doing. It's all just learn from your mistakes. But I've seen it where people try to over control their children, and then their children don't know what to do when they get out of the situation. And the best right one is allow them to make their mistakes, prevent them from doing the things that will kill them, and just keep nudging them in the right direction. They might make a mistake. You've made a mistake. Learn from it. This is what you did. This is what you can learn from it. Move on. And I had it that it was like I was the good kid, but it was only because I was really good at hiding what I was doing, the bad stuff. And but now I am the law-abiding citizen. I try my best to help people around. I also uh, I live by the policy: if you can hate irrationally, I can do the same thing with love. And this all came from parents who couldn't be around all the time to support me. It was they gave me the springboard, and I moved the rest of the way myself. And I think that's what parenting is it's always preparing the person, and you're gonna have to give the kids scars every once in a while, emotional scars and stuff like that, because the world isn't going to protect your web browsing history. The world isn't going to rubber coat every corner in the house to protect you. The world isn't going to put plugs on the electrical outlets to protect you. And teaching the kid that that electrical outlet you don't mess with, we put a cap on it to begin with, but now here's the education on how to deal with it. This thing can hurt you. This thing can do things that is called death. And you don't mess with this thing. And teaching them new things constantly as they grow up, I think, also is important. Even when they stop listening in their teenage years, you have to just constantly be giving them something new, because whatever you put in them is what you're going to get out. And I am rambling all over the damn place. I got so many philosophies in that department in parenting, because in all honesty, I've been a horrible parent. I mean, I take good care of my children. I love them to death, but I was never there all the time. I was long stretches that they wouldn't see me and stuff like that, because either I was broke or too busy. It's like, well, I could have saved my money better and got a better job so I didn't have to be so busy. Stuff like that. And so now I see parenting as something that is more important than I ever gave it excuses for, but I can't go back and fix what I did. So I am a defender of getting it right the first time and always seeking to get a proper answer. And sometimes there's not a proper answer, but sticking to your guns on what you chose also has to be cut with taking into consideration the children's wants, needs, and desires. A lot of times it's, I said it and it's the way it goes. It was completely wrong, but because I said it, you got to do it. And I think that has to be done sometimes, but other times you got to prove to the child that you're the person that has their back, and being right isn't having their back. Being right doesn't protect them from the things that you can't see, because they can't talk to you about it because you're right and they're wrong. And I think that hurts a child like dramatically in the process. There's my ramble. I did I fill enough time? Because I think I lost track of what I was originally talking about. But there you go.
Grimsby, do you have anything to say?
Sort of, yeah. As you can probably tell by my high cadence of voice, I probably don't have any kids, or at least I hope I don't.
Well, as an 11-year-old girl, can you give us your experience?
uh, so I could probably talk from my own experiences, but I feel like it better is going through. I've got two other brothers. Both of them are older than me, so they've had. I'm the last one, if you so to speak, and they had a very interesting time growing up. My parents are they're fairly good parents. I'm happy that I had them, but they weren't always perfect, and I don't really blame them for that. But they tried their best. Um, they're our first child, their first child. What did I say, horror? Joe. Um, he's a high functioning autist, which means he has some learning I cannot say that word difficulties. Uh,
Deficits, difficulties.
yeah, he so he has so through the majority of his life he's been having to go through. He's ran through multiple different primary schools and high schools trying to find not only not only courses that he could actually, properly use because he was unable to do things like any form of long division, most things to do with math and reading and writing. Um, and not only that, but he was also fairly badly bullied in his time by almost everyone he met. I think it was just how he spoke and how he held himself. It was a really shitty time he had. But instead of trying to be hyper controllative, I don't even think that's the word.
It works.
They, my parents have been pushing heavily for his education. They were always pushing heavily for his education, but in terms of his freedom, what he could do, they really just almost let him loose in terms of his social life because they were afraid that if they tried to control any aspect of that, he just simply wouldn't have one,
Mm-hmm.
and they were terrified that he'd grow up and have very little people to support him, and that if they ever died, he wouldn't have anyone. Just to point out, he's doing absolutely fine on his own. He's got a well paid job. He's got his own flat. He's doing fairly all right for himself considering where he came from. Um, but I feel that he was sort of the testing ground for the later children, Charlie and me.
The
Charlie
prototype,
was
if you will.
Charlie was definitely more controlled than Joseph. The thing is, Charlie was far more socially active than Joe, and he went to parties. He did all the usual stuff. Got drunk, got high, everything that's expected of people in their teens. Um, but unlike Joe, they just simply wouldn't let him get away with it, and he did well. He's kind of suffered academically uh, for it, and it's hard to explain. But basically, as his social life kind of declined, so did his grades. I really hope he doesn't hear this because this is actually kind of sounding really bad for him.
And they all lived happily ever after there, problem solved.
uh, he's he is also doing all right for himself, doing his master's degree. Um, yeah, and that leads to me, where they basically just let me off the reins. um, they've always been very supportive of education. They've gotten individual tutors for all three of us, more so for Joe, but it's been interesting. Sort of in our house, we sort of measure responsibility by freedom, and not like freedom to go out with friends, but more like freedom to literally go where you like, as in like freedom to move, freedom to be mobile, freedom to stay places if they believe you'll be fine. Like by the age of 12, I think maybe like 13 for Joe, we were allowed to go anywhere in the surrounding towns by bus. And I know that sounds fairly young, and but it really helped us get a sort of sense of location, sense of ownership of our surroundings. We definitely weren't afraid to move around. By the age of like 15, we were allowed to go pretty much anywhere in the country as long as we could get back in a reasonable time. And that really shaped how we saw, at least it did for me, how we saw ourselves, how we it was definitely more of it's hard to explain. Like it's helped make us feel a bit more individual, if that makes any sense. We just went places by ourselves for usually to do something, but sometimes just to get out. And we weren't tethered like almost everyone else I knew at that age. We could just go out and do what we like and then come back, and that gave us a real sense of freedom. And that it also made us a little less fearful of the world around us.
Mm.
We didn't really have that same instinctive fear of leaving the house. And when it came to it, all three of us left the house when we had to, with pretty little ceremony. Pretty much just packed up our stuff and went. um, yeah, I don't know if that answers any questions, but I, I I
No,
feel like you can never get control right.
because
It, it's
in
it's a spectrum.
right, that's perfect because we're going to have to hear, but in the next episode we'll definitely be talking about control and self-control. But for now we're going to have to adjourn. Um, so let's uh, I FakeRavens. You can find me on Instagram at FakeRavens, on Twitter at FakeRavens. You can find our podcast Spotify, Castbox, YouTube, wherever you find podcasts. You can find my other work on Spotify as well as other podcast platforms. So look up Fake Ravens Real Talk. And yeah, Goji, would you like to plug your plug?
Okay, you can usually find me Monday through Thursday, 6 Central to 8. Streaming my butt off. Usually it was Beat Saber or some other game of that nature, but now I do art. I am doing some tutorial things like what I've learned so far, and then I show off what I've learned so far. Kind of a tricky title. You can find me at twitch.tv/Gojispit. You can also find me on YouTube as Gojispit. I put up regular Beat Saber maps because I'm lazy. And now I'm starting to do my podcast, which goes up on next Saturday, will be the next podcast of Devil's Advocate. And that shows up on YouTube whenever I get done editing it, or if I'm being lazy even longer. Um, that's about it. I am changing my channel a bit, trying to add a lot more art and end up with more content that has something to show at the ending of it instead of just a video. And that's about it.
Right. And Grimsby can also be found at all of my links.
Yes, you can find me almost nowhere. I don't exist on the internet. So if you want to find me, good luck.
That's his middle finger to the government. Very, very middle finger. And with that, let's uh, goodbye. The first episode of the Tragic Mundane Tragic podcast. Adios.
Bye.
Bye bye.